In my 20s, I used to hate the police too. Why? Because I didn't like getting fined every time I went over the speed limit. The case reignited public debate, and the loony left is trying to portray him as British George Floyd.
I'd also like to send my condolences to the family, friends and loved ones of Chris Kaba.
Now, despite what his family would want us to believe, he was involved in multiple violent offences, including stabbing, possession of weapons and a fray. Here, you can see him discharging his firearm inside a nightclub full of people just days before his death in September 2022. This guy was no Dalai Lama. Check out this woke race-baiting MP Belle Ribeiro Eddy's hilarious tweet. Just last week in America, a 6-foot-tall black woman charged a police officer, slashing his face multiple times before he finally shot and killed her. George Floyd was a fool to think he could resist when police officers with guns told him to surrender. Alright folks, this is Sultan. Just when we thought the UK couldn't get any more dysfunctional, it proves us wrong again. You've probably heard the name Chris Kaba in the UK media over the past few days. He was shot in 2022 after refusing to exit a stolen car that had been involved in drive-by shootings a day before. So before I get into Chris Kaba's criminal record, his race, his political leanings, or the claims of police brutality, for the life of me, I can't figure out why people refuse to comply with lawful orders from police. Let me first lay out the undisputed facts. Chris Kaba, a member of the Brixton Hill-based drill rap group 67, was shot and killed by a police officer in Streatham Hill, London on 5th of September 2022 following a police pursuit. Kaba was driving a vehicle that had been linked to a shooting outside a school in nearby Brixton the previous evening. After ramming a police vehicle, officers ordered him to exit his car. When he refused, an officer fired a single shot through the windscreen. Kaba was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries. The Independent Office for Police Conduct launched an investigation, and in September 2023, a police officer, Martin Blake, was charged with Kaba's murder. The trial commenced at the Old Bailey in October this year, with the jury returning a not guilty verdict after 3 weeks of deliberation. This incident sparked widespread public protests, raising concerns over racial bias in policing, as Kaba's family and community demanded justice. Throughout the trial, reporting restrictions were in place to limit the disclosure of Kaba's criminal background, deemed irrelevant to the shooting itself because the police were unaware of Kaba's identity at the time and acted based on the vehicle's connection to a prior firearms incident. However, the judge has now lifted reporting restrictions in place during the trial on details about Kaba's background. The case reignited public debate, and the loony left is trying to portray him as British George Floyd.
I'd also like to send my condolences to the family, friends and loved ones of Chris Kaba, particularly this week while the media are using racist gang tropes to justify the killing of Chris Kaba. 1,900 people have died in police custody since 1990. 1990, and I would say that the police do have protections. You know, we know that our black communities are over-policed and under-supported, so can the Home Secretary give us assurances that we and our communities are kept safe and that extra protections are not given to the police because they already have the protections they need?
Now, despite what his family would want us to believe, he was involved in multiple violent offences, including stabbing, possession of weapons and a fray. Kaba was sentenced to 4 years in a Young Offenders Institute in 2019 for possessing an imitation firearm with intent to cause fear. Here, you can see him discharging his firearm inside a nightclub full of people just days before his death in September 2022. Later on, he chases down the same guy and shoots him. He would have been charged with attempted murder anyway. This guy was no Dalai Lama. So why do people cry more for criminals than for ordinary law-abiding citizens? The police officer who had to make a split-second decision believed Kaba could have had a firearm and might shoot any one of them at any moment.
Officers' body-worn cameras and dash cams caught the speed, the noise and the drama of what was happening.
Watch yourself.
The suspect's Audi drove backwards.
Mind him, he's going to try and go.
After 17 seconds, an officer fired one shot. The jury was shown a graphics version of the movement of the firearms officers. Blake is the yellow dot. He ends up in front of the suspect's car, from where he takes the final shot.
That officer had to decide whether he and his fellow officers would live or die. Despite doing everything by the book, the officer's life has been turned upside down by a society riddled with race baiters. I can't imagine what he has been going through these last couple of years. Why is the left so obsessed with discouraging police from doing their job, which is to protect us? Why does the radical left seem intent on self-annihilation? Check out this woke race-baiting MP Bel Ribeiro Addy's hilarious tweet. Chris Kaba was well loved in his community, studying to be an architect and looking forwards to becoming a father and getting married. Any mistakes he may have made in the past do not mean he deserves to be demonized. It looks like she later deleted that awfully stupid tweet. When these clowns go after police officers for simply doing their jobs, they cast doubt on whether it's even worth it for police to pursue criminals. Remember the incident at Manchester Airport where two Muslim brothers assaulted police officers, breaking a female officer's nose? The authorities were so scared of the defund the police mob that they haven't even charged those brothers yet. Worse still, the officer who was assaulted is now suspended. Instead of getting a medal for his bravery, the Manchester police, terrified of the woke brigade, sacked him.
There's no point smashing this up. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But tomorrow I'll tell you boys, if we don't get justice, yeah, I'm gonna get it.
Just last week in America, a 6-foot-tall black woman charged a police officer, slashing his face multiple times before he finally shot and killed her. Predictably, the BLM crowd attacked the police officer for killing another black person. They backed down after they realized that the police officer wasn't white. This madness has to stop. UK's terrible top cop Mark Rowley finally did say something I could agree with him on. I worry about the lack of support officers face for doing their best, but most of all, I worry for the public. The more we crush the spirit of good officers, the less they can fight crime that risks London becoming less safe. But what's truly heartbreaking is that while someone like Kaba was free to roam the streets, pensioners like Peter Lynch were thrown in prison for calling the police scum. Lynch died in prison, a place where he shouldn't even have been in the first place, and yet I don't see anyone shedding tears for him. In my 20s, I used to hate the police too. Why? Because I didn't like getting fined every time I went over the speed limit. I'd get angry when an officer lectured me for endangering public safety. But as I grew older, I realized that laws are made for everyone. Sure, I might not like the officer, but it's not him stopping me. It's the uniform, the symbol of law and order, a key component of keeping our society in order. You don't have to like the police to comply with lawful commands. George Floyd was a fool to think he could resist when police officers with guns told him to surrender. Kaba was also told to get out of his car and surrender, but he chose not to. What would you have done? Approach a guy suspected of carrying a firearm and risk getting shot in the face, or let him shoot any one of your fellow officers? These loony leftists turn everything into a racial issue. My opinion wouldn't change if Kaba had been white. Back in 2008, a 15-year-old white boy, Tyler Cassidy, was shot by police in Northcote, Melbourne. He had knives and was threatening bystanders. After pepper spray failed, police shot him when he charged at them. Cassidy was just a kid, but those officers didn't leave home that day just to get stabbed by a drugged-up teenager. This madness has to stop. We need to support our police. Sure, there should be a robust system of checks and balances, but we shouldn't discourage officers from using force when necessary, unless we're aiming for more dead cops. If a cop is out of line, you can sue him later, but when he tells you to raise your hands and step out of the car, you better comply. The cop doesn't know that you're a cuddly bear who loves cats, does charity, feeds the homeless, and wouldn't hurt a fly. If there's a report that the car you're in is involved in a crime, or the driver might have a weapon, this isn't the moment to play hero. Otherwise, be ready to get shot. The police wouldn't be at fault. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a patron to see uncensored content, as YouTube doesn't allow me to show violent footage. Alternatively, head to buymeacoffee.com/Sultan and chip in. Until next time, ta-da. If you'd like to support my work, you can become my patron by going to patreon.com/Sultan, or you can simply buy me a coffee.